All right, turning now to the headlines of the week, and there have been many. Nolan Finley is off tonight, so we brought in a crew to keep Stephen Henderson company and give him a bit of a debate. You heard us talking already. Let's welcome back Kaitlyn Bush. She's a columnist for the Detroit News. Kaitlyn, it's always good to see you. Next to her is Dennis Darnoi, Republican strategist. Hey, Dennis, it's good to see you. Welcome back. And also with us, Keith Owens, senior editor of the Michigan Chronicle. Keith, it's good to have you with us as well. And of course, our MiWeek contributor, Stephen Henderson, editorial page editor of the Detroit Free Press. You guys have all been on the show before, but not all together in this combination. So it's great to have you back here. All right, a lot of headlines this week, but we have to talk about the National Anthem protests, and not just really what happened with the NFL on Sunday, but moving it forward to the Michigan State Police Chief, who came out this week. She posted something on her personal Facebook page, Christy Kibbe E2, and it was a meme that condemned the degenerates, that's in the quote there, that kneeled for the anthem. She has since apologized, and Governor Snyder says he's not going to be removing her from her job. She said initially that her post wasn't about race. I'm going to start with you, Stephen, and say, how could it not have been construed about race? Well, it couldn't have been. I mean, not in any sort of reasonable context. The people who are doing this, beginning with Colin Kaepernick, but not limited to him, are doing it in protest of police misconduct against African Americans. And so I don't think you get to sort of pick out of that context to sort of answer back to that protest. If you are critical, I suppose, of the form of the protest, that may be a little different, but I think even that is very difficult to separate from the message here. The message here is that Black lives don't matter as much as they should. They need to matter more, and they need to matter more to police. And for a police chief to push back that way, there is absolutely no way to see that in non-racial terms, I don't think. Kaitlyn, let me ask you, do you believe that Governor Snyder should have removed her from her post?
You know, I think what she did was incredibly tone deaf. I mean, you know, particularly in this environment right now. It shows her true colors. And I think that personal Facebook pages are becoming public domain. I mean, I think it's hard to say, well, that was, you know, I saw some justification, that was a personal page. You know, she's a public figure, and I think that his support for her following it was wrong. Maybe not removal, but certainly some reprimanding and you know, taking on what she did seriously. You know, Dennis, we talk a lot about institutional racism, and it's very hard for people to see. And the Michigan State Police, they do a lot of policing in the city of Detroit, for people to not look and say, well, this is the person who is leading the charge here. How can that not trickle down the effect? Sure. I mean, you know, a person in her position has to be aware, as Kaitlyn said, that she is a public figure, and whether it was on a private Facebook page or somewhere else, it has ramifications. So it was an unfortunate incident. I do think Governor Snyder was correct in not removing her, but she did violate MSP policy and should receive a reprimand for that. You know, Keith, people are talking about protests maybe coming up this weekend, and we also had some people who were very upset about it on the Florida legislature this week. What do you think that we're going to be seeing going forward here? Well, I think it'll be fairly strong. I mean, we're coming behind the protest for Kid Rock, you know, and I think that the heightened sensitivity to racism, racial issues, you know, was a heightened sensitivity to police brutality, and I think that also the question has been raised is that, well, two things. One, in terms of reposting on private Facebook, that's no longer a defense. I think everybody knows that you can't hide behind that. The other thing is that when you're talking about what why wasn't there also a protest about Charlottesville? I mean, if you're offended about this, you know, I mean, we don't hear the same outrage, you know, what happened with neo-Nazis expressing stuff like that. So it's like if you're upset with that, you know, you're upset with somebody not standing, you know, not standing for the national anthem, but you don't have somebody marching down the street carrying torches on neo-Nazis. I mean, so I think that was this fireable? I don't know, you pretend to want to fire everybody, but I think that, in terms of a reprimand, absolutely, and I wouldn't have had a problem if they did fire her, because it's a very serious offense. Stephen? Yeah, I mean, people are trying to make this about speech, and there's no question, she has the right to say what she said. What she doesn't have the right to do is lead an agency that has the right to kill with that sentiment. I mean, there's a difference between speech and authority. There's a difference between speech and power, and this is someone with an awful lot of power, and if what she's saying is that she is prepared to wield that power along the racist ideology that she espoused, then she doesn't belong in the job. You know, we talk a little bit about Facebook, and it's that arena where people are actually giving what their true feelings are and what they truly believe. Dennis,
When are we going to give people who are in power, maybe starting with the President of the United States on down, a little social media one-on-one in terms of when you're posting things that is truly what you think and people are going to truly see it?
Well, I think a number of institutions have already done that, and I think there are policies out there, just people choose not to follow it. You know, very simple solution: make everything you do private. You know, if you're a public figure, your Facebook page, if it's going to be public, then you know it's open there for debate. But if it's private, then that's something totally different.
All right, you know what, something else this week that I saw in the Detroit News, actually, Kaitlyn, so I'm going to start with you, talking about, is Detroit ready for the jobs and development that are coming downtown? You know, Dan Gilbert, Bedrock, they've been announcing they're going to be building the new place on the old Hudson site. They're going to be rehabbing a lot of buildings. They're going to have workers coming down. Detroit is trying to go for the Amazon headquarters. And in the Detroit News, there was an editorial saying, you know, are we ready? And we should get ready, because there's a lot of different things that maybe we're missing to have this influx here. Kaitlyn, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about this? Are we ready for all of this?
You know, I don't think that we're completely ready. I think there's a lot of work to be done in order to attract the world-class kind of stuff that we're looking at, like Amazon. No doubt, you know, Dan Gilbert is probably up to that challenge, and I wish him the best of luck, but you know, our transit's still not there, and that doesn't mean we need to go back, you know, to the proposal that failed last year, but we need to be looking at real solutions, maybe incorporating some, like we said in the editorial, modern, you know, upcoming modes of sharing transportation. But the skilled trades is also just, I mean, the biggest problem to me. I mean, you know, companies have already been fined for not being able to find Detroit workers. The talent's just not there. And this, I know the city's pushing to get people into those skilled trades, but I mean, even more needs to be done. We're just not there yet.
Hey, Keith, when does a good problem to have become a bit of a problem, like that we can't actually keep up with the pace of development and the jobs that need to be filled here? And the fact that, yeah, transit, they still don't have a comprehensive plan that they want to put back on a ballot, and education.
That's the thing that's kind of just, I wouldn't say disheartening, but it just kind of catches you, because we've always been wanting jobs. I mean, that's the thing, one more job, we want more jobs for
Right.
Detroit and everything, and now here they come. And I think that the issues with this kind of gets back to, you know, earlier you interviewed Dr. Vitti, and this kind of comes back to a degree on his shoulders, in the sense of what he's going to have to face in terms of DPSCD, because we're talking about the condition of the kids coming out of these schools and what they're ready for and what they're not ready for based on the condition of schools. And so a lot of what's happening is the children are not prepared yet. It's not a matter of that. This has nothing to do with their intelligence or ability. It has to do with what they've been equipped with. And I think that now what we're faced with is that the opportunities are coming in before we've had a chance to get everything else up to par. And those two things are coming to a head, so it's causing a problem for us.
All right, but we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this kind of development. We've been asking for the expansion. And we say we are, but you know, is it being the wet blanket of saying, gosh, are we truly prepared for this?
See, I don't know that that's, I don't know it's being a wet blanket. I do think there has to be sort of a realistic self-assessment that goes along with all of this, right? So let's make a big play for Amazon, but let's be honest about the deficits that we have that would prevent us from landing something like that, and not just talk about it in the context of this sort of situation, but let's talk about it going forward. What are we going to do about the fact that people are not trained? We talk about it all the time. We're not doing the things that would actually reverse those numbers. Transit, you know, 40 some years in this community, we've not had mass transit that gets people from work to jobs or from school to home or whatever. We never do anything about it. And so maybe this is the catalyst to change that behavior. And we ought to, I think Dan Gilbert ought to be honest about that, right? This is maybe not going to work, but let's talk about what will.
Yeah, I know, but you just, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say, let's talk about what will, but let's get beyond the, well, we've got things, we've got issues that we've got to take care of, to actual, you know, then connecting the dots in Lansing and saying, what are the policy changes, or what are the differences that we have to do, Dennis, to make some of these things, instead of, you know, in 10 years, if we're going to make a bid for another big corporation, that we're actually ready for something like that.
Well, and I think that's the point. I mean, I think there is value in the challenge, even if you fail. So if we do go after the Amazon headquarters and don't get it, there's still going to be value in going through that process, and then maybe there is another one that comes down the line that we're better prepared to go after and get.
I agree with Dennis. If I could just say real quick,
Yeah.
I agree very much with Dennis in the sense that you can't. I would never say don't bring the challenge. I would never say send the jobs back. That's not the point. But I mean, but maybe that will force us to rise, to the challenge. I mean, that's the thing. We do have problems, things we need to face. But I agree. I mean, but just because we failed, we keep on trying.
Yeah, and I think that the Amazon headquarters in the bid for that is one thing, but it's also the reality of what is actually coming and the construction that will be starting here and the density of people who will be coming downtown. And when you're looking at parking and when you're looking at where people are going to live and that sort of things, those are things that we will have to deal with whether or not Amazon actually comes here. Last word on this, Stephen.
Yeah, you think about the bridge, you think about this skyscraper, you think about the other things that are going to happen. I mean, we need a lot of skilled trade experts to be able to fill those jobs, and we got to create them in the city as well as out in the city.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks you guys so much for coming in. Kaitlyn Buss, Dennis Darnoi, Keith Owens, and of course Stephen Henderson. We'll see you back here next week.